Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Alice Tang in for Tiffany Meyer. Our top story. The State Department confirming to NTD a U.S. Commerce Department employee is trapped in China. It's the first known U.S. federal worker caught in Beijing's exit ban, and the third foreigner reportedly blocked in just 1 week. China defending its barring of a Wells Fargo executive from leaving over an alleged but an unproven criminal case. The U.S. government and the bank now demanding answers. Thousands marched for freedom in New York City's Chinatown, shedding light on the Chinese Communist Party's repression within and far beyond its borders.
Last year, Shen received more than 100 bomb threats. This persecution is not just going on in China, it's spreading to the U.S. as well.
U.S.-China trade talks are back soon, likely with a new twist. Treasury Secretary Bessent hinting national security issues could be on the table, like China's support for Russia in the Ukraine war. With a looming tariffs deadline, he says quality matters more than speed. And Microsoft is cutting China-based engineers' access to Pentagon cloud systems amid national security concerns. The Defense Department says they will look into the issue. In less than a week, 3 foreign nationals have landed in the crosshairs of Chinese authorities. 2 Americans and 1 Japanese citizen are now facing exit bans or prison time. The U.S. State Department spokesperson confirmed to us on Monday that a U.S. Patent and Trademark Office employee was subjected to an exit ban in China. The employee was traveling in a personal capacity. The department said the safety and security of American citizens is their top priority. They also said they are engaging in Chinese counterparts to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. The spokesperson spoke anonymously. Media reports say the employee is a naturalized American originally from China. According to those reports, he traveled to China in April to visit family, but upon landing in southern city of Chengdu, he was detained by Chinese authorities. Some reports linked his case to Beijing's broad national security crackdown. Others say he didn't fully disclose his U.S. government role on his visa application. The Commerce Department employee is reportedly also a U.S. Army veteran. He has now been barred from leaving China for months. In an earlier statement, the U.S. State Department warned that China's arbitrary exit bans on American citizens could harm bilateral relations. Over the past few years, more and more foreigners have been targeted by the Chinese regime, often without clear reasons and transparent legal processes. 2 years ago, Beijing revised its anti-espionage law, giving authorities broader power to go after anyone they label a threat to national security. The law has sparked serious concerns among foreign businesses, pushing many to reconsider working in China. New developments regarding China's exit ban on Wells Fargo executive Chen Yuemao. The U.S. banker and citizen has been blocked from leaving China. On Monday, a Chinese spokesperson said the move is tied to a criminal investigation, but officials gave no details on the alleged crime. Mao is a senior Wells Fargo executive overseeing international trade financing. She was recently named chair of Factors Chain International, a global trade finance network. Analysts say China's exit bans are on the rise. The country has a history of blocking foreigners from leaving, often citing questionable criminal claims with little or no evidence. This move is widely seen as a way to gain leverage over other countries who are trying to bring their citizens home. Wells Fargo is restricting employee travel to China while working to get Mao back to the U.S. In a similar incident, China last week sentenced a Japanese pharmaceutical executive to 3.5 years in prison for alleged espionage. The case has raised alarms among foreign businesses. Japan warned that China's opaque legal processes are discouraging travel to Beijing. Sunday was July 20th, and exactly 26 years ago, the Chinese Communist Party launched a campaign to eliminate a spiritual meditation system called Falun Gong. Since then, members of the discipline have been speaking up for human rights on the global stage by sharing the beauty of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. In New York's Chinatown, Shen Performing Arts joined 2,000 people at a parade, calling for an end to the persecution. At the parade, Shen artists shared with us about how the Chinese regime is now targeting them right here in America. NTD's Stephanie Cox has more.
In the heart of New York's Chinatown, thousands march to mark 26 years since the Chinese Communist Party launched a violent campaign to eradicate Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, a peaceful spiritual discipline based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. What makes this year unique is that artists from Shen Performing Arts also took part.
Mission to revive traditional Chinese culture. For me as a Chinese person, I think it's very meaningful. And at the same time, I'm a Falun Gong practitioner. And the persecution that has been going on for almost 26 years, right? It's 26 years today. I think it is my duty, to let people know about this persecution through my art. And I think this is my meaning of life. And I find it really worthwhile.
At this time of year, Shen is usually busy preparing for its upcoming world tour. But recently, the Chinese regime's attacks on the group here in America have been severe. So it's been forced to come out and let the world's people know.
Ever since Shen was founded in 2006, the Chinese Communist Party has always tried to stop us from performing, tried to cancel our theater contracts, try to pressure government officials and theaters to cancel our shows, try to stop media sponsors. But the last couple of years, and the last year in particular, we've seen an escalation of this. We point directly to leaked documents that we got from China the last couple of years talking about an escalation in an attempt to crush Shen and crush Falun Gong more broadly, internationally, and in America in particular.
Shen is a performing arts company based in New York. It was founded by Falun Gong practitioners and presents China's human rights abuses on stage. To try and sabotage the group's performances, Beijing has begun a campaign to send bomb threats to U.S. theaters, target the group's buses, launch propaganda campaigns, and weaponize social media and American media outlets against Shen.
Last year, Shen received more than 100 bomb threats, and I think it's very concerning. This persecution is not just going on in China, it's spreading to the U.S. as well, and that's very scary because it's attacking America and its very core values. It's freedom of speech, of religion, of expression, and I think that's very concerning, so that's why we're here today too.
It's part of a larger campaign known as transnational repression. The Chinese Communist Party's attempts to control and intimidate Falun Gong practitioners and others, even outside of China. The U.S. State Department has condemned the regime's persecution of the peaceful practice. The U.S. House of Representatives has also passed two bipartisan bills, the Falun Gong Protection Act and the Stop Forced Organ Harvesting Act, now awaiting action in the Senate. Since 1999, the CCP has tortured and killed thousands for practicing Falun Gong and used state-sanctioned organ harvesting to profit from their bodies.
Oh man, I hope best for them. I just, Chinese people are beautiful, so I just hope that they have a good life here.
It's an evil regime. We should do everything to act against it. Well, this is the center of freedom in the world, and I'm glad that we agree on that we're anti-CCP.
This is not just about Falun Gong. If Beijing can run this playbook, this strategy to try and silence Falun Gong here, they can use the same strategy to target anyone or any organization in America.
For many Falun Gong practitioners, this parade is more than a tradition. It's a stand for the values they believe can heal the world: truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And this year, with Shen dancers stepping out of the theaters and into the streets, the message is clear. The Chinese Communist Party's repression is more than history. It's here, it's global, and it's time to face it. From dance stages to city streets, Falun Gong practitioners and the artists who represent their spirit are standing up not just for freedom in China, but for freedom everywhere. Because without truth, compassion, and tolerance, where would the world be?
For more information about Falun Gong and China's long arm on U.S. soil, visit faluninfo.net. And to learn more about Shenyun Performing Arts and the Chinese regime's targeting of the group, visit shenyun.org. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Monday the upcoming U.S.-China trade talks may include some sensitive topics. That could mean a discussion of China's purchases of Russian and Iranian oil. He also suggests that the U.S. isn't rushing to seal a deal before the looming deadline. Here's more.
We're proceeding at pace with the negotiations, but we're not going to rush for the sake of doing deals. And we are more concerned with high-quality deals than getting these deals done by August 1st.
August 1st is the deadline President Trump set to strike a trade deal with the U.S. or face steep tariffs. Secretary Scott Bessent says the U.S. will talk to China, quote, in the very near future. He serves as the chief negotiator for the U.S. in the ongoing trade talks between the two countries. In a Monday interview with CNBC, Bessent hinted the upcoming talks will cover sensitive topics, including China's support for Russia during the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war.
Unfortunately, are very large purchasers of sanctioned Iranian oil, sanctioned Russian oil. So we could start discussing that.
Recently, President Trump announced tariffs on Russian oil buyers as part of efforts to pressure Moscow for a peace deal to end the Ukraine war. Any country continuing to buy sanctioned Russian oil will face a 100% tariff. Bessent called China a very large purchaser of Russian oil and urged U.S. allies, especially in Europe, to follow the U.S. lead in imposing these tariffs if the U.S. does so. Earlier rounds of U.S.-China trade talks took place in Geneva in May and London last month. After those talks, both sides agreed to reduce some tariffs ahead of the looming August deadline.
Microsoft is removing China-based engineers from certain Pentagon projects. These engineers will no longer handle sensitive U.S. defense work. The move follows a ProPublica report which accused Microsoft of letting China-based engineers work on Pentagon cloud systems without proper safeguards. On Friday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth emphasized that foreign nationals should never access or work on any Department of Defense systems. Microsoft told Fox News it's ending the use of China-based engineers for Defense Department cloud services and related work. The company used a system of digital escorts. These employees lacked technical background, yet they were tasked with monitoring foreign engineers with far more advanced skills, including those based in China. ProPublica found that these Microsoft employees likely couldn't detect or prevent potential data leaks due to their lack of skills. Adding to the concern, some foreign engineers handled government data that wasn't classified but still involved sensitive material. This includes information tied to military operations or data that could impact lives and cause serious financial harm. Current federal guidelines require anyone handling sensitive data to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. Hegseth said he will look into Microsoft's program, and he made it clear again that foreign nationals should never have access to U.S. defense systems. Coming up, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. touching down in the U.S. before sitting down with President Trump for trade talks. First, he stops at the Pentagon to talk defense. We break down what's on the table between the longtime allies.
Our storied alliance has never been stronger or more essential than it is today.
An unprecedented crime. The Chinese Communist Party is accused of forcibly harvesting organs from prisoners of conscience, often killing them in the process. What's the right response to this atrocity and the CCP's threat?
I believe communism is the most evil ideology mankind has ever produced, and the Chinese Communist Party is an evil organization.
More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Alice Tang in for Tiffany Meyer. On Monday, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth welcomed Philippine President Ferdinand Jr. to the Pentagon. Marco is in the U.S. to meet with the Trump administration and work towards securing a trade deal. Here's what Hegseth had to say.
Our storied alliance has never been stronger or more essential than it is today. And together we remain committed to the Mutual Defense Treaty. And this pact extends to armed attacks on our armed forces, aircraft, or public vessels, including our Coast Guards, anywhere in the Pacific, including the South China Sea.
The Philippine president will meet with Trump tomorrow. He hopes to negotiate a more favorable trade deal before the August 1st deadline. Marcos will be the first Southeast Asian leader to meet Trump in his second term. Trump has already struck trade deals with two of the Philippines' regional partners, Vietnam and Indonesia. The U.S. traded with the Philippines last year at a deficit of nearly $5 billion. The Philippines is a key U.S. ally with a strategic position in the Asia-Pacific.
An unprecedented crime. The Chinese Communist Party has been extracting organs from prisoners of conscience to sell for profits, usually killing the victims. Earlier, NTD's Steve Lance spoke with Senator Ted Cruz about his bill to sanction this crime and that the U.S. needs comprehensive strategy on countering the networks of the Chinese Communist Party.
Senator Ted Cruz, thanks so much for taking a moment.
Good to be with you.
You've introduced the Falun Gong Protection Act to the Senate. This would be the first of its kind bill if passed. What type of message do you think it would send to the Chinese Communist Party if it does pass, and what does the bill actually do?
Well, listen, the Chinese Communist Party engages in murder, it engages in torture, it runs concentration camps, it persecutes dissidents. With the Falun Gong, they're a religious minority who are targeted, they are rounded up, and they're subject to horrific practices, including organ harvesting. They literally capture practitioners of Falun Gong, they remove their organs, and then they provide them either to transplant to other Chinese nationals, or they also find them the organs on the black market to be trafficked overseas. It is a grotesque and utterly inhumane practice. And this law, very simply, would impose sanctions on anyone engaged in organ harvesting of the Falun Gong. And it's a simple, common sense proposition. My legislation passed the House by voice vote, without a single recorded objection. That's a very positive sign. We need to move it through the Senate. It hasn't moved yet, but I'm going to keep pressing it. And we need to speak with one clear voice against the evil that is perpetrated by the Chinese Communist Party.
Senator, to your point, the crime of forced live organ harvesting, it's not done by a rogue person.
Yeah.
This is state-run by the government. And your state of Texas has been at the forefront of legislation, particularly when it comes to these types of organ harvesting practices.
Listen, I have been for 13 years in the Senate leading the fight to stand up to the atrocities of the Chinese Communist government. And, you know, when I first arrived in the Senate, elected in 2012, I said at the time that China poses the single greatest geopolitical threat to the United States over the next century. And I think we need a comprehensive strategy, very much like Ronald Reagan had during the Cold War to take on the Soviet Union. We need the same sort of comprehensive strategy to take on communist China. Now, I got to tell you, in 2012, 2013, 2014, I was a very lonely voice up here. Virtually every Democrat disagreed with me. And most of the Republicans disagreed with me. They looked at China and they saw nothing but dollar signs as far as the eye could see. I do think a lot of people's eyes are opening up. And just like Ronald Reagan, you go back to the Cold War, there is power in clarity. You know, I was 10 when Reagan became president. I remember he came in and he referred to the Soviet Union as an evil empire. He said Marxism, Leninism will end up on the ash heap of history. He said, when asked, what's your strategy in the Cold War, he said, very simple, we win, they lose. And most notably, he stood before the Brandenburg Gate and he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Ronald Reagan and America won the Cold War without firing a shot. We need that same clear resolve, and an important part of it is calling out their horrific atrocities and human rights abuses, and the fact that you have a government of a nation that purports to be a civilized nation, that is a permanent member of the Security Council of the United Nations, that is involved in every international organization. They ought to bow their heads in shame as long as they're carrying out practices like forced organ harvesting. So there is power in sunlight and truth for exposing their evil practices, and I'm going to keep fighting to do that as I have for 13 years.
Senator, talk to us about the transnational criminal element to the Chinese Communist Party when they expand their reach into the United States to manipulate our institutions, our media. What can be done to stop that?
So the Chinese Communist Party engages in propaganda. It engages in espionage. It has active spy networks in the United States, active spy networks against Chinese Americans, active spy networks against Taiwanese Americans, active spy networks against Americans writ large. You look at one of the very first pieces of legislation I ever passed into law was legislation dealing with Confucius Institutes. So Confucius Institutes are on college campuses in America. They are paid for and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and they are pits of both espionage and propaganda. And I drafted legislation that would cut off funding from the U.S. Department of Defense to a university that allowed a Confucius Institute to be operational on its campus. As a result of my legislation, which got bipartisan support, we have seen dozens of Confucius Institutes shut down. It is very much transnational. You look at something like intellectual property theft. Look, theft and IP theft has been around from the dawn of time. The first guy who invented the wheel, somebody probably stole the idea and made wheels for his buddies. But there's a difference. We have never before seen a nation state with trillions of dollars of resources and an economy behind it use the theft of intellectual property as a state policy. Listen, when it comes to communists, my father's from Cuba. My father was imprisoned and tortured in Cuba. My aunt, my Tia Sonia, was imprisoned and tortured by Fidel Castro's goons. So I have to tell you, when it comes to communists, I hate communists. It is personal. It is visceral. I believe communism is the most evil ideology mankind has ever produced, and the Chinese Communist Party is an evil organization. And I think we need American leadership to stand up and shine a light to stop their espionage, to stop their propaganda, to stop their theft of intellectual property, to stop their murder, their torture. There are over 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps right now in China. And China should not be treated as a member of civilized society as long as they're engaging in vast and horrific oppression of its own people.
Senator Ted Cruz, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Alice Tang in for Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you soon.